Welcome back to another episode of Master Asian Core. Today we're going to talk about story points. Well, not just what is story points. I think most teams, they can look it up and read about story points. And we talk about story points or relative sizing. So oftentimes I get team asking me, well, okay, what do you mean? Isn't one story point equates to X number of hours? For example, one story point equals to 6 hours. How do we start? Where do we start using story points and how to do it? So join me as we figure it out. Today we're going to look at how you can start using story points. And this is one of the things that often confuses people. Where do I start? How do I start? It's relative sizing. We all know what it is. Well, but I don't know where to start. So here's a quick way of starting. So I'm going to use a board. To help us figure that out. So first off, start by doing really simple. Break it into a couple of columns. Then what I want you to do now is to take a story. In this instance, I'm going to use a sticky to help represent what a story is. Use it, pick the smallest one that you think it could be. Let's assume I'm going to put it right here first. And this is story number 1. Well, let's call it story A. It doesn't matter where you put it, but pick one that is small enough. And usually I don't pick all the way to the left. So what we want is that we're going to make assumption that anything to the left is smaller than anything to the right. So small to big. So pick one, and let's say you pick a story A, just pick one from your backlog, and let's put it in here. Not the smallest one, we don't know if it's the smallest one or not, but we just make assumption. Then what you want to do next is pick the next story. Pick the next story, compare to this story. Compare the story A, is it smaller or bigger? Assuming that it falls somewhere in here, that's story B. Then pick the next story, compare to A, is it smaller than A? Or is it bigger than A? Is it bigger than B? So have that conversation to talk about it. When you compare relative sizing, it is the total amount of effort. It is considered development, coding time, plus your QA time. Total package. So all together, what is my total effort comparatively, right? So compared to, is it bigger than B? Is it smaller than A? So have that conversation to figure out where it lands. It doesn't have to be accurate, and it's fine. So assuming that maybe it is over here, and story C is, we say it is smaller than B, but bigger than A. Let's put it there, that's fine. Let's pick the next story. And have the same conversation again. Where does it fall? Is it bigger or smaller? Total effort, okay? So assuming it sits right here. So that's story D. Let's pick another story and figure out where it falls. So E, where does it fall? Okay, maybe it is smaller than A. That's okay, let's put it right there. So now that you have this, let's do one more story. Same deal, pick where it falls, and assuming it is bigger, and let's put it here. That's F. So this is how you start. Very simple. Go to a whiteboard, draw your lines, pick one story from the backlog, put it anywhere you want, assuming to the left is the smallest and to the big is the biggest. So I would usually start with putting in the second column, because there might be stuff that's smaller than that. So in this instance, we have that conversation of, where does E falls compared to the rest? It is smaller or bigger. That's all it is. It's not hours, nothing whatsoever. What is the total effort needed? Once you have it, you can make a conversation and say, you know what? I think C is actually almost a borderline to B. That's okay. That's fine. Let's make an assumption that C is about big as D. Okay. So once you have this, I'm going to readjust this so that make it easy for me. Once you have this, all you have to do now is going to apply the numbers. I'm start by applying 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and there's nothing in this one. So these numbers here are Fibonacci series. Okay. All we're saying that is that an 8 is bigger than a 5, and 5 is bigger than a 3. That's all we're saying. No reference whatsoever in terms of whether it is hours or anything like that. So this is how you start. Do this. Start with this. This is your first pass at it. We know that things are going to change, and that's okay. Once you have this, then you put your story points on the numbers. So this is a 1, this is a 2, this is a 3, this is also a 3, this is a 5, this is an 8. How do we use it then? Okay, so assuming that in the spring we are going to pull all these stories in. So that means that we are pulling total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stories. Add them up, that's your total amount that you committed to doing in the spring. Well, what if we're wrong? What if C, after we're done, turn out to be that it is bigger or smaller? That's okay. So what you want to do then, after your spring is done, you make an effort to say, you know what, C blew up. It was actually more of a 13. So what you want is then, that's okay. What we want to do is that don't change the story points in your system of record. Leave it as what it is because that's what we learned. Okay, so we know that this is a 13. What we want to do is take this from a 3, move it into the row of a 13. Okay, leave it there because we have learned that a 3 has become a 13. Now essentially what you're using now is this. This here becomes your scale and your ruler. Okay, use this the next time you do sizing again. So assuming the next time you have another sizing, and this time around, you know, you have a new story that comes into play, use that story, have the conversations of where does this feel? Compared to what we did before, I think it feels like a 5, right? It feels like it is a B. It's similar to what we did before, so it probably is a 5. So put it there. Make that a 5, right? And what if happens, let's say, guys, you know, this feels like a story of like C that we did before, and we know before it was 13, so put it in 13. So use this as a guide moving forward. Nowhere in here I talk about hours other than relative sizing. Size it, figure out where it falls, capture the data. From here then, you can get to a point where you can reuse the ruler, the sizing ruler, to help you size. Over time, you get pretty good at it where you kind of have an idea where things fall. So you will get to a point where you know your velocity. So this is sizing. Hope this helps. Bye.